Welcome into the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast, and today is our first post-game, post-victory podcast
Yes.
with one of the most insane finishes in recent memory. Nasty Nazem Kadri finishing it with 0.1 seconds on the clock. They had to review it for quite a while before they could decide that was a goal. It was right on the buzzer. True buzzer beater right there. Crossbar bounce. It was weird, but I mean, what is the big takeaway from the game from you guys other than, this is a big win? What do you guys think?
The Avalanche looked really good.
Yeah, they did.
They played well.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying on the live stream, we're seeing a lot of high-scoring games in the play-in rounds, and I kind of just feel like that's because of the level of competition. Like the Avalanche and the Blues, this game was literally the top two teams of the Western Conference at the end of the pause, or excuse me, at the beginning of the pause. And I feel like that's a bit of the reason that we saw like a 2-1 game, and the second Avalanche goal was scored at the very end of the game. So it was a highly contested game. In the end, I really liked the way that the Avs looked there. So.
The Avs played super well, and I got to say I'm very happy they didn't lose their composure because it was definitely getting frustrating there near the end of the game without scoring a goal.
Yeah.
And Bennington essentially standing on his head for the second period. Big win for the boys. Clearly, Nazem the Dream pulling it out with a millionth of a second left. Literally the latest goal ever scored in playoff overtime or playoff history.
It was crazy.
Wow, what a game that was. What a restart for Avalanche hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I think the Avalanche outplayed the Blues. Not necessarily, massively, but I think it was clear that the Avs outplayed the Blues. I think that the Blues, they got the one goal and they got the jump, and we had a real hard time beating Bennington.
We did.
But other than that, the Avs led in the shots by a fairly sizable margin, and time of possession, it was in the Avs' favor. It was just the goal scoring that took us a minute to get down, but once we finally did, Graves cracked him, and then, as we've talked about, Nazem Kadri finished him off.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time. Like, we were pouring out on shots, especially in the first period. Zach had mentioned it's pretty likely that the boys were starting to get a little bit frustrated in the first. I mean, they were out shooting them, I think, 14-2 at the time of the David Perron goal. And it was pretty apparent just even watching it, like the Avalanche were dominating that game at that point. Excuse me. So it is pretty important and exciting that the Avs did not get discouraged and just kept on trucking and kept on believing in themselves, really, because they know that they have the offensive firepower. They know that anyone on their roster can put the puck in the net, and it just eventually happened with Gravy on a little bit of a fluke play, was not necessarily wanting to whiff on the pass and then recollect it and then just snipe. So, but if that's the goal that that it needs to happen to break Bennington, then we'll take it.
Yeah, it was a weird thing that happened. It was Gravy lost the puck. It was, I don't know if he was trying to pass or shoot, but whatever it did, losing the puck sold Bennington, which had him locked into one spot. And then when Gravy recovered the puck, put it in that top corner, Bennington never had a chance. Yeah. You got to be lucky sometimes. And that was what it took to finally beat Bennington. 38-34, the final shot total. So the Avs maybe didn't win by too much, but just watching the game, they dominated the shots for a while. The first period was all Avalanche, aside from the one goal. Like you said, at the time of the goal, that was the Blues' third shot. So it was 14-3 or 15-3 at that point, and the Avs just were not able to beat Bennington until later in the game, but eventually got it done.
Another thing that really stood out to me is the Avs definitely had some timely penalty kills, especially that one in the third. It was definitely making the three of us nervous. I think it was 5 minutes left, or maybe a little bit more time than that. And the Blues being on a power play with, the firepower that they have, and then the Avs, I think, probably gained a little bit of momentum from that. Like they look solid after that, and I don't necessarily love the amount of penalties that we took in this game, but I feel like our penalty kill was pretty freaking solid. Aside from that first goal by Perron, and
Yeah.
like, I think our penalty kill looked pretty solid. We were getting the job done. Grubauer definitely had to be the star of the show there, and I feel like we just got it done, and we were able to grind this victory out.
Definitely. I mean, the special teams battle always big. In this game, it 2 periods through, it looked like we were going to lose the game because we were losing the special teams battle, but had some big penalty kills in the third period, and it might have gotten lost a little bit in the chaos, but that game-winning goal by Naz was a power play goal, so we were able to get it done on our final power play of the night.
I think that was
and
7,
ended
right?
up honestly winning the special teams battle, so it was big.
Yeah. I think that was our 7th power play, if I'm not.
Yeah, we had a lot. Even the percentage still not great.
Yeah.
But
We were finally able to
get it done. Maybe that'll trend towards scoring a couple more of those power play goals. What do you think, Zach? Like, what stood out to you?
Definitely, I gotta say the play from Grubauer, honestly, keeping the boys in the game
Yeah.
when the Blues, especially late in that second and early in the third, where they had a little bit of sustained pressure in the zone, and they were peppering the boys, and the boys, not only Grubauer, but the defense had to lock down and keep the boys in the game. So Grubauer was my probably most surprising / outstanding player of the game.
Yeah.
Especially after, I wouldn't want to call it a rocky start, but letting in a goal on the
Right.
third shot of the game, not exactly.
To me, that's a rough
It
goal.
was a goal he should have had.
Mhm.
Maybe not absolutely should have had it, but it was. You'd like him to make that save, but he made up for it.
He did.
Didn't give up another goal in the game.
I would say that that's a goal that he definitely could have had. I am definitely in the minority here, but I think David Perron absolutely ripped that puck. And being that it was a one-timer, it was a bit hard for Grubauer to get over there and then get his glove up.
Moving across to the far side as the puck came across and then beat him back the other way. Yeah. So, definitely it went in the opposite direction that Grubauer was going. So it's a reasonable goal to allow. Mm-hmm. I think we're all kind of... Zach thought he should have had it. I think he, borderline, somewhere between a good shot and should have made the save. Right. And I think you're all on... You're further towards that it was a good goal.
I guess, by no means do I mean it was a muffin, but I think it's a goal that he should have stopped.
I mean, if you're going to allow one of those goals per game, I'm going to be fine with it from Grubauer going down the stretch here. It's I
agree with that. I think it would have been a problem if he had allowed a couple of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like if McKinnon would have done that same shot, we would have been in a different tangent saying that was an absolute rocket from McKinnon and just a snipe.
I mean, if McKinnon shot it, it would have been harder.
I don't know, man. I don't know what you guys are seeing. I think that was a pretty freaking good shot by Perron.
I mean, it looked like an average one-timer. I didn't think it was some kind of laser.
Right, agreed. And he was maybe a little bit screened by Johnson, who maybe have tipped that off his leg up into the net.
I don't know. I mean, either way, I think that was a really freaking good shot by Perron, but I guess I'm in the minority here. Either way, Grubauer stood on his head. If you're going to allow one of those goals, in my opinion, not a shoulda had it type of thing, a coulda had it type of thing. If you're going to allow one of those per game, then the Avalanche are looking pretty good down the stretch.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, he didn't have any red flags, basically. He didn't have any, man, Grubauer's got to stop that kind of goals. And they got, they had 34 shots on net, so it wasn't like he wasn't busy. We've mentioned that it was the third shot. He was still cold, you know, so that might have factored into it. So I liked the way Grubauer played quite a bit. I think, I don't want to say he's absolutely stolen the job for sure now, but I'd say he's taken an edge, and it would take a lot for him to lose it now.
Yeah. Uh-huh. He's at least... I think that he at least helped his case with this game.
For sure.
Like
Yeah,
very,
definitely.
very solidly. So, but what a fun game. I mean,
Right.
just a highly contested. It felt a little bit like a playoff game. I mean, especially with the physicality. I feel like there was a bunch of big hits getting thrown around. Maybe not like the edginess type of side of the hockey game. Like there wasn't too many scrums, there like no fights, no like absolutely jarring after the play that you'd kind of expect from division rivals. But I did like the physicality, and there was kind of an intensity and like just a feeling that like this is a game that we really really want to win, you know. So
Yeah, it was like a more intense regular season game. I think on our live stream I compared it to like a really big regular season game. So when you're playing, like when we were playing St. Louis in the regular season, basically, when every time we played them, it was, this could very well be a key factor in deciding who wins the division.
Yeah.
So it was like that. It was not just your average regular season game, but not quite to the level of a playoff game.
yeah,
And it was a lot of fun to watch for sure.
yeah. And another thing, yeah, Billy, kind of on that same tangent here though. Like we were talking about how much value that the players in these teams that are in these seeding games kind of like value it in a way, and I kind of do feel like they value it quite a bit because these are only 4 games to determine who you're going to be playing. Only 4 games that
Definitely.
kind of like boils down into like an epitome of the regular season in a way, you know? Like these guys played upwards of 70 games, and then it all comes down into 3 games against the top 4, or against I guess the other top 3 opponents in each conference. So I do feel like there is some weight that is held on these games. Maybe not as much if these games were or like their series are going to be played in their hometowns, but I do feel like the boys are kind of going to get up for these games here.
Yeah, and I mean, we watched them do it. The way they played, it clearly meant a lot to them. Like, they really wanted the win on both sides. This was the first round robin game in the bubble. Actually, I believe Boston and Philly was just right before this. So,
Yeah.
but the first one in the West, it was kind of the first show of what it really was going to look like, and it looked like they clearly took it seriously. No one's playing around with lineups. No one's like mixing guys in. We did have Jost over Nieto, which you could argue he won the spot. You could argue they just wanted to take looks at each. We'll have to wait and see with Nieto, but definitely took it very, very seriously.
Dude.
Treated it like it mattered. They didn't treat it like a warm-up. They treated it like this now matters.
Starting to think about it, I don't know if I saw Jost in like the second half of the game.
Right, and I kind of
He
wanted to
was
touch
there.
on that.
He didn't play a ton.
There's a few players that, well, now that we've touched on the positives, is there any players that you guys thought could have improved their game that you wanted to see more of? Because I can think of 3 off the top of my head that could have played way better.
Yeah, and I think I know who one of them is, and I'll save him for you. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
I think
we're
that,
thinking about the same guy for sure. But I'm also thinking about Andre Burakovsky. I think he
Yeah.
could have had a little
Yeah.
bit of more of a presence that game,
Yeah.
being a top 6. And Jonas Donskoy, him as well.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the middle 6 in general.
Mm-hmm.
Before, like towards the end, Kadri got the goal, but that was on the power play. But some of those middle guys, our secondary scoring, didn't do a ton. They weren't bad, but I mean, in a 2-1 game, there wasn't a lot of scoring to begin with. But they didn't make plays that made their presence felt. It's very difficult to evaluate in a game like this. That was very much defensively oriented with not a ton of scoring going on and not very many splash plays at all. But the middle 6 in particular, I did not think made very many splash plays. There weren't a ton of scoring chances just right off the top of my head that I can think of. I'll have to, go back through and look at some of the things that I might have missed, but definitely on the top of my head, I just can't think of a ton that they got done as far as driving play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's get into that player that you guys are thinking of, because I think I have a little bit of a different opinion.
Okay, so I'll just say it right off the bat. It's Mikko Rantanen, who
Oh, That's
Oh,
not
are
who.
you thinking of Landeskog?
Yeah.
Landeskog just had the penalties in the first, but I think Zach and I are both thinking of Miko,
Okay,
Yeah.
who
that's not who I was thinking of. That's a little bit different. Like, yeah, I think
he didn't necessarily play badly,
no.
but similar to the middle six,
He was
I didn't
invisible to
see
me.
a lot of him making plays. I didn't hear Mikko Rantanen on the call very much. I didn't see Mikko Rantanen getting some good shots. He had a one shot on a power play on a one timer, but there was definitely not of Mikko Rantanen taking the game over, Mikko Rantanen driving play. It was just he was there, but not necessarily firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, he was pretty invisible, and some of it just my eye test. I feel like he was kind of fumbling the puck around a little bit. Like, he wasn't really
Yeah.
receiving passes and making passes as smoothly as he normally does. And some of that could just be because he was out before the season got paused. Or so it could just be a little bit of like getting back into NHL game shape. But it is pretty important to get him, like going again, because if the Avs are going to make a deep run here, he's one of the key pieces that needs to get going here.
Absolutely.
So
What do you think, Zach? Like, how did you feel about Miko today?
Miko, like I said, none of the Avs had a clearly bad game. There's no Av that I would point to and say, "Wow, you played like shit." But
I think that's exactly right.
but Miko was, he's one of our superstars. He needs to be more of a presence out there, in my opinion. He's arguably McKinnon's right hand man, and he didn't look like that out there today.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair assessment. And I know, Marshall, you touched a little bit on he was bobbling the puck quite a bit, maybe didn't look like he had full control of it. And I think that was true of him to a greater extent, but also true of everybody on both teams. A little bit of rust, especially in the first half of the second period. So really that first half of the game, there was quite a bit of sloppy kind of puck handling and passing kind of plays where it just looked like, these guys clearly haven't skated in a while. And I think that's to be expected. But it also led to Ryan Graves' goal. Is where just that sloppy stick handling a little bit. But how long do you think it takes before that's gone? Like, do you think it was that first half of the game, it was the exhibition and then the first half of this one, and now they'll probably roll forward? Or do you think we see that throughout maybe the round robin and maybe even into the first round?
To me, I gotta say these guys are professionals and they've done this their whole life. I think personally it's probably going to take one game at full speed to knock most of the rust off. I think we see more crisp passing and more smart decisions from the boys going forward.
yeah. I'm kind of on the same tangent as Zach. I think it's going to get better and better every game we see. But for the whole sloppiness to get fully like kind of abolished, I think it's going to take another 2 to 3 games. Mostly just for like the chemistry aspects. It's like these guys haven't played together in like 4 months, and they only did end up getting one exhibition game, and then just get thrown straight into actual games. So I do think it's going to take just a couple more games, but just the fact that these games are just intensified and amplified that much more is going to help knock the rust off a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I listened
Yeah,
to Nas
definitely.
in the post game interview talking about how this had a little bit of playoff intensity. And I think we could see that just watching, that the boys were absolutely flying, especially in that first period.
Yeah, they wanted it. And I agree. I don't think it takes them too long to knock the rust off. I don't think it trickles into the first round at all. I think it takes them through the round robin. I think the play-in teams get it done in the play-in, and after that, I think the passes are going to be crisp, the skating is going to be sharp, everything's going to look good. We did get to see a little bit of some change-up. I know you pointed it out when it happened. We got a little bit of a different look on the power play breakout. Not on a regular basis, but a couple times they tried something new, which I'm a big fan of. The power play breakout was getting a little bit stale and a little bit ineffective just because everyone knew it was coming. We got a couple of different looks today. What did you guys think of that? How did you feel about changing it up?
I thought it was good having Landeskog or Rantanen run that hinge on the wing. Definitely gives a different look to the power play entry. Like you said, Billy, everybody sees the the McCarr up the ice to center, drop to McKinnon, zone entry. Everybody sees that coming every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not a bad thing to switch it up, but also, that works sometimes. McKinnon's an
Yeah,
absolute beast. So we'll see.
McKinnon
I don't
flies.
hate it. It's definitely a good option to go to.
Just keep everyone on their toes. Maybe changing it up once every 5 or 6 times means that they have to respect that maybe this time they're not going to the drop pass to McKinnon when you do it. So it frees them up maybe a little bit more.
Well, see, I have a few thoughts around that. Kind of pinballing off of what you just said, Billy. McCarr gives this team, especially on the power play, just an X factor. It's like he gives the team that speed on the back end that McKinnon that makes teams fear McKinnon. And now McCarr's kind of brought into that. You don't necessarily know if McCarr, if he's wheeling up the ice, if he's going to drop it to McKinnon, or he's just going to take it himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it scary for any team that's playing them. Like, if you have two guys with the skating ability like McKinnon and McCarr, that should automatically make your zone entry on the power play like semi-automatic, But then with that being said, I did like the entries that the power play had, but I didn't necessarily love the power play. They were getting some chances, but I feel like some of it is due to some sloppiness. Some of the sloppiness that I just mentioned with Mikko Rantanen was on the power play. I feel like he was fumbling the pucks and kind of missing some of his passes on the power play specifically. So I didn't necessarily love the look, but I think that is also due just to the fact that like this is just their second game back, or the first actual game back, but second like game in Edmonton. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but I do like the element of just adding a little bit of surprise into the
and
power
when you
play.
mention the sloppiness on the power play, the play that's popping into my head is McKinnon made that nice little pass to Donskoy in the slot, and Donskoy tried to get a little cute with it. Mm-hmm. He didn't exactly have the right hand because he's a right-handed shot. If he had a lefty, he could have just fired it. But he tried to kind of drag it around and then make a drop pass and just couldn't really handle the puck. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It was a little bit sloppy. It was a little bit because, he hasn't handled the puck very much. Mm-hmm. He hasn't received or made a lot of passes. So, yeah, sloppiness on the power play where they had sometimes once they got in the zone a hard time setting up and staying set up. But I am hopeful that will be overcome with just a little bit more time.
I mean, they were 1 for 7 with a pretty big asterisk in my opinion because they scored the last .01 seconds to go or whatever. But either way, I feel like we're being kind of negative on the boys. I think they played a terrific hockey game.
Yeah,
especially for their being their first game back. And I just saw a team on the ice that is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
I agree completely. Yeah, we've been a little bit on the negative side, which is weird for a very hard-fought, good win. Mm-hmm. And the Avs played very well as a whole. Zach mentioned it earlier in the show. There's not a single player on the Avs that you can point to, really, that I thought and say he had a bad game. So, a really good team win for the Avs, and it's just, in a low-scoring game, it's a lot easier to find the nitpicky things than it is to find the real high-quality stuff.
Absolutely. I kind of just feel like the Avs beat the Blues at their own game tonight a little bit.
A little bit for sure, yeah. Locked it down, kind of just set up that wall and said...
Played a very structured game.
Yeah, what kind of offense you got? Can you beat us? And the answer was no, the Blues could not beat them.
And I feel like, to an extent, that's what Bednar's been preaching to the boys in this return to play action.
Yeah, that's literally what I was just about to say. I feel like some of that's due to coaching. I think Bednar, Billy, you say this all the time, is one of the most underrated coaches in the entire league, and I think this return to play type of format and these playoffs are going to be where Bednar shines and says like, hey guys, look, I'm one of the premier coaches in the entire league, and I have one of the best young cores and fastest cores in the entire NHL. And we're going to come out to fight every single night.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, like you said, I love Bednar. I think that there were multiple games in both the Calgary series and the San Jose series that maybe the Avs wouldn't have won if it hadn't been for Bednar out coaching the Sharks or the Flames.
Right.
You know, they won the game on the back of the players, but also on the back of Bednar just doing his job better than the other guy as the head coach.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it perfectly. I was going to add on to it, but I forgot what I was going to say. So
That's all right. Maybe it'll come back to you. But I do want to talk a little bit about just how big this win actually is, because, it's a little bit of an underrated aspect how big this game was in the standings, because, we've been thinking of it as finally hockey is back, that kind of game. But also, a win here really puts the Avalanche in the driver's seat as far as getting that number 1 seed. We've overcome St. Louis. As long as we do our job from here on out, the 1 seed is ours. If we win our next 2 games, it's ours, and St. Louis can't say that anymore because we flipped it.
I think
they've got to hope for someone to beat us.
I mean, if in the end we finish 2-1 and the other teams also finish like 2-1 or a one more team, how does that end up working?
It's just the tiebreaker is your regular season standings.
Okay.
So if the Blues finish 2-1, they'd still have the edge on us.
Okay.
And but if we'd have the edge on both Dallas and Vegas.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of something I was curious about. But yeah, if we can win one more game out of the next 2, then we at least have second seed if I'm calculating that right in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless I guess
if we win
Vegas
another game, we're locked into 2.
Unless Vegas or Dallas goes 3-0, and those are one of the. But either way,
I don't know if that's possible for one. No, if one of them goes 3-0, then St. Louis would have 2 losses, so we're fine. If we win another game, we've at least got the 2 seed.
Okay. Sweet. So yeah, this is a humongous win, and I feel like people are kind of underrating this little play-in round. But these boys are still hungry for that first seed. It's just going to give them the easiest matchup in the first, theoretically. I like that the NHL is doing reseeding. So, and we've been talking about it, especially in the Western Conference. I don't think it's as strong as the Eastern Conference, so I wouldn't necessarily be scared of matching up against anyone, But then I'd still way rather match up against a Calgary or Vancouver than an Edmonton,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say Chicago making some noise, and Chicago historically and this year in particular, a team that Colorado has matched up really well against. And if we get the 1 seed and they win, then we're guaranteed to play them because they'd be dead last. So, I mean, maybe you don't necessarily want to take a hot team, but every team that you would play has just won a series. Yeah. And if I had to pick one to play, I'd love to take the team that we have beaten on a regular basis. Even when we were bad and they were good, we were still beating them. Yeah. Just because it's just one of those matchups. So definitely something to look into. If we do end up getting that, I would be very thrilled.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just a fun night of hockey all around. It was a fun live stream that we had. Definitely appreciate everyone coming out for that.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who saw that. We're going to try and do more of these as often as we can. We all work, and I've got school and stuff like that, so we can't do every game, but we're going to do it when we can. We had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah. We're definitely all pretty gassed. We're tired, just hanging out for 3 hours and then recording the pod right after, but it was quite a bit of fun, and we look forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This has been a shorter pod, but any real things you guys want to touch on before we go ahead and get out?
Kill Mulcar for Calder, and just like everybody said, thanks for coming out to the live stream, and we'll hope to see you on the next pod and live stream. It was good. We're excited.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for watching. If you're on YouTube or Google Play or iTunes, just know we're all over the place. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. We've got quite a bit otherwise going on around the Off-Brand Network. We've got our main network channel. We've got a Top 10s podcast, and we've got a sports podcast where we talk more generally about all the Big Four leagues and even a little bit of other stuff as well. So check out whatever would interest you, and we'll see you in our next episode.